The psalm for today is Psalm 142. And it's a psalm that was written by David when he was actually king of his nation, but on the run from an enemy and hiding out in a cave when he wrote the psalm. And the psalm helps us understand a little bit about what God's protection and how strong and powerful God is to take care of us when we're facing some difficult times. So we thought, we've been watching some of these videos this week. I'm going to read the psalm while we watch the video. Hopefully seeing it, hearing it will help it become real to us. So, Psalm 142. I cry out loud for help from the Lord. I beg out loud for mercy from the Lord. I pour out my concerns before God. I announce my distress to Him. When my spirit is weak inside me, you still know my way, but they've hidden a trap for me in the path I'm taking. Look right beside me. See? No one pays attention to me. There's no escape for me. No one cares about my life. I cry to you, Lord, for help. You are my refuge, I say. You are all I have in the land of the living. Pay close attention to my shouting, because I've been brought down so low. Deliver me from my oppressors, because they are stronger than me. Get me out of this prison, so I can give thanks to your name. Then the righteous will gather all around me because of your good deeds to me. Hallelujah, grace like rain falls down on me. Hallelujah, and all my stains are washed away. They're washed away. The scripture lesson comes from the 9th chapter of the Gospel, the Good News of John. And we can see ourselves every week in this living word, both as the people Jesus is interacting with, and we can see Jesus' model for how we might interact with others. So, here's the story from John chapter 9. Verse 1. Walking down the street, Jesus saw a blind man from birth. His disciples asked, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, causing him to be blind? Jesus said, you're asking the wrong question. You're looking for someone to blame. There's no such cause and effect here. Look instead for what God can do. We need to be energetically at work for the one who sent me here, working while the sun shines. When night falls, the workday is over. For as long as I am in the world, there is plenty of light. I am the world's light. See, I find that interesting as we kind of get started on this thing called daylight savings time. We have these sayings like, got to make hay while the sun shines. And Jesus is telling us that He's the light of the world. And while the light is shining, work as hard as we can. Stop looking for somebody to blame. That's kind of His message to the disciples. So go on. Verse 6, he said this, and then He spit in the dust, made a clay paste with His saliva, rubbed the paste on the blind man's eyes, and then He said, go wash at the pool of Siloam. Now this is a picture of the pool of Siloam. It's an actual architectural site in Jerusalem. Notice, if you will, there are stairs going down to it and a tunnel on the back end. Inside that tunnel is a narrow set of stairs. it's a long way down to the pool of Siloam. It's fed by an aqueduct. And so for there to be a pool, it had to be way down. So this blind man has to find his way down to the pool of Siloam. Going on. The man went and washed and saw. And I think, this is the first thing he saw. He's down in a deep hole in the water, and it's the very first thing he's ever seen in his life. I mean, that'd be kind of an odd... Yeah. Anyway, verse 8, soon the town was buzzing. His relatives and those who year after year after year had seen him as a blind man begging were saying, "Why, isn't this the man we knew who sat here and begged?" Others said, "It's him all right." But others objected, "It's not the same man at all. It just looks like him." Like some kind of doppelganger kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's just some guy that showed up and looks like him. And they said to him, "How did your eyes get open?" And he said, "A man named Jesus made a paste and rubbed it on my eyes and told me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' I did what he said. And when I washed, I saw." So where is this man? I don't know. Verse 13 says, they marched the man to the Pharisees. This day, when Jesus made the paste and healed his blindness, was the Sabbath. So the Pharisees grilled him again on how he had come to see. He said, "He put a clay paste on my eyes, and I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "Obviously, this man can't be from God. He doesn't keep the Sabbath." Others countered, "How can a bad man do miraculous, God-revealing things like this?" And there was a split in their ranks. They came back at the blind man. "You're the expert. He opened your eyes. What do you say about him?" The blind man said, "He's a prophet." The Jews didn't believe it. They didn't believe the man was blind to begin with. So they called the parents of the man, now bright-eyed with sight, and they asked him, "Is this your son, the one you say was born blind? So how is it that he now sees?" It kind of reminds me, you ever see those things on Facebook or on the internet? Like a blind beggar with his sunglasses on, then he pulls out his phone and he's like, we got you. See, I think they were all of a sudden like, maybe the dude's been pulling one over on us this whole time, right? So verse 20 says his parents said, "We know he is our son, and we know he was born blind, but we don't know how he came to see. Haven't a clue about who opened his eyes. Why don't you ask him? He's a grown man and can speak for himself." Now, John puts some parentheses in here. His parents were talking like this because they were intimidated by the Jewish leaders, who had already decided that anyone who took a stand that this Jesus was the Messiah would be kicked out of the meeting place. That's why his parents said, "Ask him. He's a grown man." Verse 24. They called the man back a second time, the man who had been blind, and told him, "Give credit to God. We know this man is an impostor." He replied, "I know nothing about that one way or the other. But this much I know for sure. I was blind, and now I see." And they said, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" "I've told you over and over, and you haven't listened. Why do you want to hear it again? Are you so eager to become his disciples?" With that, they jumped all over him. "You might be a disciple of that man, but we're disciples of Moses. We know for sure that God spoke to Moses, but we have no idea where this man even comes from." And the formerly blind man replied, "This is amazing. You claim to know nothing about him, but the fact is, he opened my eyes. It's well known that God isn't at the beck and call of sinners, but listens carefully to anyone and everyone who lives in reverence and does his will. That someone opened the eyes of a blind man born blind has never even been heard of, ever. If this man didn't come from God, he wouldn't be able to do anything." And the religious Pharisees said, "You're nothing but a piece of dirt. How dare you talk with that tone with us. And they threw him out on the street. Looked in your bulletins or not, but this morning's sermon title or message title is TCB. And if you're like me, when I go to church and I see stuff like that, I'm like, what kind of clever game is this we're playing, right? Well, how it all happened is Lisa and I were discussing some stuff, and we came to this conclusion. And so then it makes me wonder, well, what do you believe TCB stands for? So it could be like the Christian Bible, but it's not. It could be true Christian beliefs, but that's not what I'm after. It could be the Citizens Bank. No, that's not either. There's a yogurt that we're all familiar with, TCBY, the country's best yogurt. Maybe it's something to do with Christian's Best or something. There's a drug actually called TCB2. It's a hallucinogenic, much like LCD was when we were young. But no, we're not talking about drugs this morning. TCB is an acronym. So Lisa and I get to do some great stuff together. We really do. We're leaving this afternoon. We're going to run out to D.C. This is our one chance to see my son and her daughter until who knows when. And before Easter gets here, so we're just going to run out and back real quick, work on the path. And but a few weeks ago, we had to go to Dallas. On our way back, we stopped in Memphis. We visited Graceland. And this is actually Graceland. And if you ever get to go there, one thing you will notice is it's kind of underwhelming. You think about a big old mansion, and in its day, it probably was, but it's not all that big by our housing standards today. And one of the things we learned is that Elvis, in the 70s, was so far ahead of his time in some ways. He had a personal brand. And I had no idea that he created a logo and a phrase, and he had custom stuff done with it. And so while we're in Graceland, we got to visit his two planes. These are his two private jets, and these are the tails. And here's the logo, TCB, over a lightning bolt. And we saw it, because you can see it from the street, and you're like, I don't know what that is. And then inside the actual Graceland, there's like a museum, of course. And so there's jewelry. On the left here is a ring that Elvis wore when he performed that has his TCB in diamonds. And then on the right is a custom-made jewelry piece that he had made that he gave to all his friends. He gave one to Sammy Davis Jr., he gave one to Dean Martin, he gave one to his limo driver. He had a whole bunch of these necklaces made, he would give them away. And they were made out of solid gold, of course, and so they're collector's items today, and they have the TCB logo. And it's even on his grave. Lisa, outside of Graceland, in the backyard, sort of, is the graves of Elvis and a bunch of various folks that were related to Elvis. And on his grave is this logo at the bottom, TCB. And we're like, what is it? Here's what it stood for. Taking care of business in a flash. Apparently, this came to Elvis after his marriage ended. And he felt like, I got a lot to do, and I don't have much time to do it. I got to take care of business in a flash. And so you say, okay, well, that's a great story about Memphis and Elvis and all that, Jim, but what does it got to do with what we're doing at church this morning? And here's the connection for you. I believe the Psalm, David in a cave, and I believe that the scripture story about the blind man helps us understand that God and Jesus taking care of business in a flash. They were taking care of business while there was business to be taken care of. Jesus' encouragement to us is, hey, while the light's shining, take care of business. What does that look like? Well, the first thing I think we have to recognize is that God was taking care of business, and he does in each of our lives. So let's not miss the fact, the obvious fact that in our story, a blind man can see. Now, the man's been blind since birth, and he's a full-grown adult. And there's no evidence that he was calling out, please, somebody make me see. He's probably just sitting there. He may have been begging, and if he was asking for money. He had no idea who Jesus was. This man stopped, had a short discussion about who's to blame with some friends of his, spit in the dirt, healed him. More than he could possibly imagine, taking care of business in a flash, right now. The second thing that I think we can understand as we struggle in our lives. God cares for us, but it's also that the blame game derails taking care of business. Whenever we find ourselves involved in the blame game, whose fault is it? It's your fault, it's my fault, it's their fault. It derails God's ability to take care of business. So right away in the beginning of the story, the disciples are there and they just want to know, whose fault is it? And doesn't that kind of sound like us? Don't we sometimes go, what did I do wrong to deserve this? Or don't we find ourselves saying, if they hadn't done this to me, and we don't understand it, God might be actually using this situation as Jesus describes to the disciples so that God can get glory. So it gives him an opportunity to take care of business in a flash. So it may be that during Lent, as we kind of get rid of some of the distractions in our lives, we begin to increase our focus on what God might be doing, and we start telling that story to someone that in the midst of the struggle, God is going to take care of business. There's a couple of things that I think we can still see in this story. The first is that taking care of business involves us. Perhaps the blind man in our story have been asking the same kinds of questions. Is it me or is it my parents? Is there something wrong with me that I've got this life being blind? Perhaps he'd spent years of his life waiting for someone to do something to take care of some business for him. Now Jesus does something outrageous. Jesus says, I'm going to spit in the dirt, and I'm going to rub the mud I make with my spit on your eyes. Now just stop right there for a minute, right? I'm just telling you, if I show up at the hospital for any one of your surgery and I go, hey, before we pray, I'm just going to spit here on the hospital floor. And I'm going to rub some of that on any part of your body. You're going to be, oh, leave me alone, Pastor. I don't want anything to do with you. What? You think a blind man heard somebody spitting? Oh, yeah. Had anybody ever spit on the blind man before? Probably. And all of a sudden, Jesus is rubbing this mud. Now, what's his reaction going to be? Somehow. Jesus says, now go wash this off. Down a flight 4 or 5 stories long. Go down in there, find the pool. What? See, the miracle is the guy did it. He somehow let Jesus be a part of this. The blind man needed to do what Jesus asked him to do in order to take care of himself first. Most of us are blind to our own issues. And like the blind man, we may be waiting for someone else to take care of us. But the first thing the man had to do was listen to Jesus and take care of himself. And I think there's a lesson in that. Taking care of business in a flash. Don't wait any longer. Jesus, God has something for us right now. Take care of it. There are 3 different groups of people in our story that could have taken care of some business with this guy, and they don't seem interested. The first is the disciples. The first group of people is his friends who could have. They heard Jesus. They saw him spit in the dirt. They saw him rub. They told the guy what to do. And the disciples, at some point, all they seem interested in, who's to blame? And that sort of sounds like us, doesn't it, sometimes? We see somebody in distress, we go, whose fault is this anyway? And here's what they could have done. Taken the man down into that water. But there's no account that they did that. They seem to just disappear. Like, we know what to do. Well, let the guy take care of himself. Yeah, see, that's a little uncomfortable for me. But it happens. It happens in my life. I have a feeling it probably happens in all of our lives. The second group of people is the family and friends of this guy. The neighborhood community of which he was a part. We have no part in the story where they're like weeping tears of joy because their friend has been given this sight. In fact, it seems as if they're very apathetic towards it. And when they call his own parents in, some of his friends are like, nah, he might not have ever been blind. And others were like, well, no, this is just like his cousin, kind of looks like him. We got the wrong guy. And nobody's like, wow, look at this. This is great news. Let's throw a party. And doesn't that sort of sound like us sometimes? We hear the story of a person who used to be in prison and they got their lives turned around. We hear a person who was on drugs and they got their lives turned around and we go, oh, well, it won't be long, the other shoe, then, we just dismiss that God's at work doing a miracle. And these people, his own parents are like, well, we don't want to get involved. We don't want to get in trouble. We don't want to say the wrong thing. We don't want people to think that we're those religious freaks that kind of talk about God all the time. So we just keep it on the QT. And we don't really get too involved. And that's kind of too bad in a way, because we miss taking care of business in a flash. The third group of people are the actual religious people. Now notice this is not our church pews. In fact, somebody at the other church pointed out this is from a movie. I can't even tell you the title of the movie. I suspected as much when I saw the picture, but I thought it worked well. Because see, the religious people, not us, I get it, not us at our church, but many people in the culture see that the church is like the Pharisees who said, wait a minute, you don't get to come into our church and talk to us like that. You don't get to claim that you've got an inside information that we don't have. We follow the laws, and you got some wacko story about some dude that spit in your eyes and made you see. And sadly, the culture's not that far off sometimes. You see what I mean? Sadly, their opinion of who we are is not that far from the truth unless we work hard to be different. And sadly, the culture doesn't always see that the church is the place that takes care of business in a flash. And you see, if they were to accept this man's testimony that this person, Jesus, who claims to be the Messiah, was actually what he said, it would throw everything they knew about their faith into question. And I think sometimes in the church, we have that tendency. We have that tendency when Jesus might be asking us to go and serve in a prison somewhere, or go and take care of other people who are drug addicts or prostitutes or struggling in the midst of an ugly and horrible divorce, and we're like, I don't know, Jesus, if you can redeem this thing or not, and it's probably something you did wrong anyway, and you know what I mean? And just we miss it. So I think the less obvious miracle in the story happens toward the end of the story. It's Jesus taking care of business, not only in spitting and putting mud on a man's eyes, but what happens later. You see, this man is rejected from birth. The church, the religious people, his friends and family all thought he had done something wrong or his parents had done something wrong. That was the cultural norm. And if you were disabled, you were ostracized. You were not part of the mainstream group. And that still happens today, right? And now, the only place that he could kind of go with the community was to the meeting place, the synagogue, the church, the temple. And he's been kicked out. And right here's the little miracle. See, his life was bad and it got worse. In our lives, get that way sometimes, right? We think, wow, what else could go wrong? And then something else goes wrong. We're so broken, we're so sad, we're so beat up, and we go, it can't get any worse. I've reached the proverbial bottom. And just as this man reaches that bottom, guess who shows up? Jesus. Jesus is looking for him. He didn't send his disciples and go, hey, go find that guy. He didn't say, hey, go get that guy and bring him here. It's not all that convenient. I don't have time to go look for him. No, he goes, I'll look until I find him. Now, why would Jesus go looking for a guy who's on his worst day? Besides the fact that God is love, we get that, right? You know, here's what I think. Jesus not only wanted to express love and concern and connection with that man, he had an unfinished piece of business to take care of. So he goes back to the man and he goes, do you believe in the Messiah? Do you believe in the Son of God? Do you believe in the faith that... And he goes, if you'll point out who this person is, believe me, I'll believe. After what's happened to me today, I'll believe anything. And Jesus goes, it's me. Now remember last week at the woman at the well? What did he say to her? It's me. I am the one speaking to you. This week he's like, hey, Hey, it's me. Don't you recognize my voice? You ever had that happen? This last week, for a variety of reasons, I was at a funeral visitation that I didn't plan on being at. And it was for a man who lived where my mom and dad had lived. My mom still lives there in the facility. And his daughter and I were really good friends in high school. And I hadn't seen her in 30-some years. And I thought, I'm here in town. I'll stick my head into the visitation. I stuck my head in. I'm looking around. I don't recognize anybody. I'm sure she's there, but I have no idea who she is. All of a sudden, just about the time I'm ready to just leave, she points across the room. She comes walking right at me. She's about the right age, but I don't recognize her at all. As soon as she said, "I'm so glad to see you," I knew it was Lisa in a minute. Her name happened to be Lisa, too. And it was like, wow, it was so good. We just caught up for a few minutes, how you do at a funeral visitation, and then Lisa and I had to go on and see Mom and do some other things. And yet, that voice recognition thing, see, that's what the blind man is like. Oh, yeah, that's the guy. You're the one that spit in my eye. Thank you. It says he fell down and he worshiped him. And then it said Jesus more or less includes him into the group of followers. What a miracle. On his worst day becomes his best day. As Jesus makes a spiritual connection to the physical healing. You know what I mean? And so I think it's meant to help us soften our hard hearts. Take care of business right now in a flash. It will change our hearts towards others. You come looking for us because you care. This week, give us eyes to see those around us who need the love and care that we can provide. And give us the courage to do so. For your glory. Amen.